I feel like I'm always mispronouncing this guy's name. It is one of the Thompson twins. It's Ausar Thompson. Am I pronouncing that incorrectly? I just feel like I'm hearing it multiple times. What do we, before we get into the details, is that wrong or right?
Yeah, no, I've been calling him Asar, but then I've started seeing more and more people start saying Asar out of absolutely nowhere. I've heard 50-50 on both. So as long as you say one of those two, you're not going way out of left field on that. I think you're fine.
So this is a really interesting player. Obviously, we know the Thompson twins. I mean, I'm finding it really hard, and I'm sure you are even more so, is how to evaluate what we see out of Overtime Elite. Like, we saw one player play in the NBA from Overtime Elite last season, not really until the end of the season. That was Dominic Barlow, and let's be honest, he played pretty bloody well. I thought he looked good towards the end of the season. I thought he should have been actually drafted instead of being that undrafted player. I thought he looked really, really strong, and he's probably got an NBA future. So I don't really know what to make of this. There's going to be plenty of criticisms of the Thompsons in terms of the age. Let's just dispel that they are older. They're, in terms of them and Brandon Miller, could easily be the three oldest players picked in the top 20, both over 20. All three of them over 20. So there's that age factor. And the thing that, Richard, people will look at, and I'm not sure if this is why you're lower on Ausar than others, is that the level of competition and the younger, they were going up against a ton of younger players, which made them look better than they were. I've heard that criticism. Do you buy into that?
Yes and no. I think it's interesting, first of all, just the age. Like, somebody who I like a lot, Mike Miles out of TCU, is 3 months older than Brandon Miller, 4 months older than the Thompson twins, and he's a junior in college. So, when you put them side by side, yeah, it's not good. It's not ideal that they're 20. That's just not ideal at all. But at the same time, yeah, it's hard to evaluate Overtime Elite. I agree with Dominic Barlow. Like, he should have been drafted, but they play against some good talent. Like, the OTE is getting a lot more talent. Like, they have top guys on every team. But where it gets me is there's a few things. Some of these, there's really no scheme. And just like some of the habits, I think that some of them, like Ausar, namely, has on the court, not like anything toxic or anything. It's literally just like he picks up the dribble too much. And my worry is, all right, if you're doing that against OTE, what's it going to look like against NBA prospects, and we didn't see him scrimmage in the combine. They have absolutely no reason to. They could drop very badly if they play poorly. They had nothing to gain, but it's really just, how do you, like, every flaw gets maximized and every pro gets minimized, right? So it's hard to really evaluate these guys fairly, I think.
Yeah, it is. It's going to be tough. Like, and it's even. I was talking to someone on one of these shows last week about the G League Ignite guys. Like, we've seen it for 3 years, but it's 6 players. Like, it's 6 players who've entered the NBA, and I still don't really know how to fully evaluate all that. And, when people talk about back to the Brandon Miller Scoot stuff, they go, it's got to be Brandon Miller. It's because you've been conditioned to see college basketball for 30 years, 40 years as this number one thing. It's on it seeps into your consciousness through, on in bars, it's around you, everyone's talking about it. So you think, oh, well, these guys are doing this at this level. And we don't really know how to evaluate G League. And now Overtime Elite comes in. I still don't know. And you look at these numbers. These are per 36 numbers. 1.6 blocks and 3.5 steals are legitimately insane numbers. 8 assists per game. But a lot of the players playing there, like I was looking at another Overtime Elite guy, I think Jazzy and Gortman, who averaged like 3.2 steals per 36 as well, which are, like, again, crazy, crazy defensive numbers. And I think we have to read into that with a pretty significant grain of salt, some of those defensive numbers. But I guess the criticism of Thompson is there's the dribbling stuff that you just mentioned, is the shooting. Are you just not confident that it's ever going to be fixed and he could turn into, because obviously he's an absolutely elite athlete, but is it Dennis Smith, who was an elite athlete and still can't shoot?
Yeah, it's a few things. One, I think the defensive numbers are real. It is inflated a bit, probably, like, just because it's not going to be like that day one. I had a coach at OTE tell me, Ausar is the best defensive prospect I've ever coached. And that says a lot. Like, at any level, he's been multiple places. Like, that's a lot. So for me, I think that does have value, but the shot is concerning. And this is just for both twins. Ausar's the better shooter.
Yep.
And he shot 30% from 3 and 67% from the line in OTE. Those numbers aren't going to get better right away in the NBA. So what worries me is, if you look at just college guys who shoot 67% or below from the free throw line, most of them actually don't become good shooters. Some of the bigs do that had it, but if you're not a big man, if you have that low percentage, you really don't ever come around. I think the only one I can think of is Avery Bradley, who shot 55% at the free throw line and was a career 36 shooter.
Didn't Lonzo shoot poorly from the free throw line at UCLA?
He did. That's another good example. He was right there. He was at 67.5.
Okay.
So like it was right there. That's one of the few use cases, right?
Yep.
And I think Lonzo is a comp, like in a weird way. I don't think I don't think Lonzo's a true point guard. Ausar probably won't be a true point guard in the NBA. I think there's a lot of similarities.
So you said he won't be a true. He's obviously big. Like there's six listed 6'7". I think they measured in at 6'6" at the combine, so a little bit shorter than that number that's up there. Is he like a guy that they'll give the ball, or will he play like on the wing? Like I don't really know. Sort of say for example. I can't even think of the perfect team, like the Magic, like playing next to say Markel Fultz. Like, does that make sense for him there on that sort of a squad?
I actually don't think so. I think you can't have him and Fultz play together. I mean, Fultz is struggling still off ball.
Yep,
that worries me. What I like about him, because his passing skill is just incredible. I think he's the second best passer truly in this class behind his brother Amen, who the difference is Amen's a better live ball playmaker. The difference is Ausar, I think he's better as an off-ball playmaker, right? Where he comes off the screen, gets 2 dribbles. His decision-making, whether to go to the rim or pass, is elite, and his ability to make those passes is elite. No matter what the competition is, I think that will translate up. But if you're not putting enough pressure on the rim and you're not shooting consistently, that skill gets massively negated. Like passing is one of the easiest skills, I think, to get negated in the NBA, and that's what worries me for him.
In terms of being lower on him, there's a significant range of his draft picks, 5 to 10. But over the last day or two, as I've been updating my mock draft database, I have seen multiple mock drafts place him higher than his brother, which I hadn't really seen at all until the last week or so. So, how out on Ausar are you? Do you think that it is fair? Like, would you clearly have Amen ahead of him? And like, are we talking that you're at like 8 for Ausar, or 12 or 15? Like, where are you with him?
Yeah, I'm not out on Ausar. I'm out on him being a point guard early on in his career. I think that can grow, but if you're expecting him to be that point guard full time, I just worry. There's too many examples of him picking up the ball, just stopping his dribble with a head full of steam against OTE, against 6'9", 6'10" guys. And that worries me. How are you going to do that in the NBA when you have Brook Lopez right there, right? Like, You're not going to finish through him. So he's got a long ways to go in that regard. Maybe the spacing helps him, but it's not like the spacing was that bad in OTE. There weren't that many post-ups, things like that. So my thing is he's got to shoot. I think the defense will always keep him on the court, because if you ask any GM, their whole method of why they want someone is what can they do to get on the court right now? And Ausar is going to automatically be a positive defender. It really, for me, is just I don't know how much of a positive he can be on offense. That's really where my reservation is, at least for early on. And maybe I'm looking at it too short-sighted, but
I think, and maybe I'm wrong on this, but some of the vibe I get with both Ausar and Amen, it is the overtime elite stuff, and that the fact that people don't take the league seriously, or they don't take the competition seriously, and there's a little bit of a vibe of, well, this is an easy cop-out for these guys to have gone here. These guys don't have great character. They're playing in this freewheeling league and don't care about fundamentals. Is there any truth to any of that stuff? Because the reports I've heard from people who've spoken to us is like unbelievable, like legendary kid, really, really great, head screwed on, positive, unbelievably hard worker. But I still hear that other stuff like, he goes here, doesn't want to work hard, just want to muck around and do highlight stuff. Like, that's not really the problem, is it?
No, if you hear anybody say that, they're lying. I mean, I talked to too many people at the NBA draft combine last week, where varying sources of it, some people in the NBA, some in higher media, just too many, some other agents, and every one of them said you'll never hear any knocks about Ausar's work ethic or Amen's. They both love basketball. They love the game. It's not their fault that they're in OTE and they took a second year in it, right? I mean, like, you can't really fault them. I guess they could have gone to the NBA last year, but I mean, at the end of the day, it's their choice. Like, and if they're putting in the work to be better every single day, how can you knock that?
Yeah, no, look, every person that I trust or listen to says the same thing about them, but you just hear that gets out there, and sometimes it snowballs, and people, it's just a weird thing because of the unknown, again, of what overtime elite is, that people don't really understand how the program goes. We're going to come back and talk.